So yesterday, I realized, wait a second here, the Diva are taking on the Dream in Atlanta. I'm sitting down here and I'm writing some thank you notes and sending some gifts to some friend of mine that helped me get tickets to Wrigley Field for my family, and I turned the game on and I can't stop watching. I cannot stop watching. Literally sitting here going, oh man, get him, Caitlin, get him. Get him. And then I start, because of the show today, I start looking at some things while I'm watching the game, and we came up with this. The Flying Knicks came up with this, and I think this is very interesting. Yesterday, during the game, see, Caitlin Clark just has a different mentality. Number one, she's must-see TV. She plays different, but she has a dude's mentality. So yesterday, during the game, she twists her ankle. She comes back in and plays. And when you watch the twisted ankle, I sat here thinking, what's wrong with you, woman? Get your ass up. That's what I thought. Well, you know what Caitlin Clark said after the game? She said, yeah, I saw my ankle twist. I looked really soft. She did. She said it looked really soft. I needed to get back out there and play. And she did. And they won, and she put up 19, 8, and 6, and whatever it is she does. But this points to the point that I'm making. Caitlin Clark is not your average female or male athlete. So many male athletes today bitch, whine, and moan about everything. Not her. She, according to Holly Rowe of ESPN, she says Caitlin Clark is embracing, loving the smack talk. She's loving being banged around, and if anything, she's egging on a more harsh reception, this is her words, by the WNBA, calling the banter between Caitlin and the rest of the league good for the game. She's so right. She's so right. You know, she doesn't really act like a boy. Some of these girls act like boys. She kind of acts like a competitive woman, and I'm digging on it. I love it, Caitlin Clark says, because it's supposed to be competitive. Duh. I love that people are kind of talking smack and saying, hey, you need to prove yourself. I think that day is over. Now, let me stop right there. That day is over. The woman has proven herself. It's a matter of others proving themselves to her. That's how great players go. Isaiah comes in the league, Magic Bird, they come in the league, Jordan comes in the league. For a minute, you got to prove yourself, and then the script flips. And you got to prove yourself to Caitlin Clark. And make no mistake, that's what's happening now. I kind of like it because it's supposed to be salty. That's why it's competitive. That's why it's sports. I think it's good for the game. When she has proven herself and has played well, then some same veterans are the ones that come up and congratulate her. That's Holly Rowe. Well, that's Holly Rowe on Caitlin Clark. Now, understand something. Holly Rowe doesn't know her ass from third base. Nothing. Zero. Zip. I've worked with Holly Rowe. Zero. All right? And that's fine. But here's the deal with Caitlin Clark. It's not about the veterans coming up and congratulating her. That ain't it. When you're Caitlin Clark and the veterans come up and congratulate you, you're like, yeah, that's great, but show me. You ain't that good. I thought you were better. We've all done that. We've all had that done to us. You know, somebody that played against Isaiah probably first after, hey, he ain't that good. Then over time, he learned and got his ass whooped. See, Caitlin Clark now has put herself in a position where others have to prove themselves to her because she's been through all the ish. It's like Jordan. 100 years ago, Michael Jordan scored 63 against Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Dennis Johnson, Danny Ainge, Robert Parrish, Bill Walton in a playoff game. It wasn't like, hey, Grook, congratulations, you're one of us now. No. It was, yo, we got to get good enough to beat him. That's what's happening in the WNBA. And Caitlin Clark is reaching a broad audience. It was interesting yesterday watching. So they moved the game in Atlanta to the big stadium. I don't know if it's still called Phillips, whatever it's called. There's only the second time they did it, and both for Caitlin Clark, but they moved it over there. And I always look at the crowd, and you think there's just going to be a bunch of little white girls wearing Fever 22. Not yesterday, not in that crowd. In Hotlanta, where they love their hoops, there were African-American women in their 20s and 30s wearing Caitlin Clark uniforms, jerseys, T-shirts. I couldn't believe it. It was fascinating. But that's what sports is supposed to do. See, sports if you take the idiots in the media out, if you take the David Dennis Jr.'s out, if you take all the guys that are race-baiting clowns out, sports unify. Sports brings people together, and that's exactly what I saw when I was watching the Fever Dream game early. They cut to under the basket, and there were three beautiful, struttingly beautiful African-American women wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys, giving that number one to the camera. It was cool. I loved it. I dug it. I always dig that kind of stuff. And I'll rail against race in sports until this freaking face turns as red or as blue as my shirt. I don't know. But that's what sports is supposed to do. And Caitlin Clark, because of what she's been through, because of all the crap, because of folks like Barkley, Stephen A. Smith, and others in the African-American community standing up because, well, why wouldn't they? They're sports people. They like ball, and ball brings African-American and white together like no other sport. It just does. Don't at me about it either, people. Well, anyway, this is odd. At the same damn time, A'ja Wilson. Now, I like A'ja Wilson. I think she's a beautiful woman, plays beautiful basketball, but she's kind of immature, kind of a child. And I've said that before, and I'll say it again. And if somebody asks me, and again, sometimes I think of these things now as a father. I used to always think of him as a coach or a player. Now, sometimes as a father. I mean, I got a daughter that just conned me out of $90 yesterday to pay for something. You know what I'm saying? It's what dads do. But meanwhile, A'ja Wilson is pissed. She ain't happy that opposing players are staring at her. Don't look at me. You're not worthy. What is this? Tom Cruise on a movie set? Alec Baldwin? What? And now she wants the league to do something about it. Two different mentalities in the same sport. Here's what A'ja Wilson has to say. I told you way back, this is the most immature superstar in sports. Go ahead.
All right, I'm here with A'ja Wilson, and you're pretty fired up right now. What's going through your mind?
Everyone has to do their job. From the players to the refs to the coaches, we all have to do our job. And I don't appreciate being looked at and stared at as if you're trying to intimidate me or act like I don't have a voice on this court. So, yes, we are messing up defensively, and it's like we're not engaged, and we need to get engaged, and that's on us. But also it goes hand in hand, and that's it. And if I get fined for this, I'm terribly sorry, but it's ridiculous. We've been going through this all season, so everybody got to do their job.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Everybody got to do their job, and they're staring at me. I don't know if she was talking about referees. I don't know if she was talking about other players. I mean, damn. Don't look at me. You can't look me in the eye. I'm A'ja Wilson. What? Hey, look, that now you want to talk about weak. Now, I know a lot of reporters are out there calling Deion Sanders weak for banning that clown who writes for the Denver Post, but I got to tell you talk about weak. They're staring at me? Now, I understand staring at you can be weird. I used to work with a woman named Carol Lawson, who's now the head coach at Duke. And whenever we worked on a set, I've told you this before, she would say something and then look at you. And she went to ESPN management and said, Dakich doesn't look back at me. And I said, because it's creepy. Like, I'm not going to sit there and stare at you while I talk because you're staring at me while I talk. What you said wasn't that damn interesting. Don't look at me. What is she? Yeah, employees must not look the star in the eye. Referees must not stare at the star. Other players do not stare at the star. What is this? Well, as I told you, and when I tell you something about a player, you can make book on it. 99.99999% of the time, it is true. I told you that by the end of this year, Caitlin Clark would be in the running for most valuable player, not just rookie of the year. And I also told you that A'ja Wilson is America's most immature star, MVP, superstar, whatever the hell you want to call her. And they just keep both making me right. Bingo. Paul Feinbaum, media man extraordinaire, the SEC nerd, whatever you want to call him, the most dangerous man in NCAA football. He's at it again. He criticizes head coach Deion Sanders. What a shock. A newspaper guy criticizing a coach over another newspaper guy. Ucha capesta, my eyes are burning. Who would have seen that coming? Feinbaum's mad at Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders told Denver Post Sean Keeler, suck it. Suck it. He didn't ban Keeler from press conference. He basically said, we're not taking any questions from you. On the opposite side of the argument, Danny O, that gutsy guy. Danny O doesn't believe you can post, Danny Orlovsky, doesn't believe you can post, protect our daughters, because it goes against ESPN's hierarchy. Old blood and guts, Danny Orlovsky. So Danny Orlovsky's actually defending Deion Sanders and commending him for standing up for himself. See, I am Orlovsky's squarely on my side. I'll never say that I am on Orlovsky's side. Orlovsky heard me say this, and he's parroting it. That's what most people do. Coach Prime is showing he's not ready for prime time. Really? Really? This is a guy that's been in the national spotlight since he was 17 or 18 years old at Florida State. And Feinbaum has never wiped his ass in a locker room in any pressure. Feinbaum can sit there and judge. Sanders has been in the arena, taking slings and arrows and garbage since he was 18 years old at Florida State. But Feinbaum uses a little catchy phrase. Coach Prime is showing he's not ready for prime time. Okay, Feinbaum. Okay, Deion may want to talk about love and joy, and that's been the cornerstone of what he seems to be spewing out. But treating reporters like this seems like we're in some autocratic country. That's not treating a reporter bad. There is no treatment of this guy other than to say we're not answering your questions. You got very personal about us, and we have no other option with you. I mean, if you want to beat his ass, you go to jail. I mean, there was a time when a guy would just say, man, you said you called me this, let's go. But that time has passed. Nobody needs to do a stretch in San Quentin over some fat-ass middle-aged reporter. So you just simply say, look, criticize me all you'd like, but I'm not answering your questions. Because, frankly, the questions, if you really break it down, the questions don't matter. See, here's what nobody seems to understand, and everybody knows this, that's coaching. Guy comes into a press conference with an agenda. What's the agenda? Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Well, this Keeler guy, or Kessler, whatever the hell his name is, he comes in with a negative personal agenda against Deion Sanders. Maybe it's racism. Maybe he didn't like him from something else. Maybe he bet on him and lost money. Who knows? And obviously, with white middle-aged sports columnists, all of that is on the table. You know, they're like the biggest dirt bags. Well, frankly, they are the biggest dirt bags in America, see Greg Doyle. But the truth of the matter is Deion Sanders isn't treating anybody in any kind of way. They're just simply saying we're not going to answer questions from you. We didn't come into this not answering questions from you, but because of your personal attacks, deposition, Deion, clown show, circus, all the stuff, all the personal names that you have called Deion Sanders, you have put us in a position of no choice. The other choice would be just whoop your ass. Every time you say something bad about me, I'm going to take you out back and whoop your ass. Now, that's 1940, right? But you can't do that. So your only other option is to simply say, hey, look, we're not answering questions. Yay, rah, go fight, win, but we're not answering questions. This is not America. I find him to be a bully and a hypocrite. You know what is interesting, and this is actually what America has become. See, guy starts a fight, which is what this Keeler did. Guy that is on the other side, the opponent, punches back. Guy who starts the fight claims victim status. That's how this goes. It goes that way all the time on Twitter, all the time. Guy comes at me. I answer reasonably now. Didn't used to be. Now I do. Person inevitably comes back as a victim. That's all this is. That's exactly what Feinbaum's saying. So little Mr. Keeler, he starts a fight. And let's be honest. If you're going to call a highly competitive, big ego human being names in a publication for all to see, that's starting a fight. Sanders retaliates. Keeler, according to Feinbaum, is now a victim of bullying. Look, the word hypocrite gets thrown around a lot. I don't know where Deion Sanders is a hypocrite here. Seems like Deion Sanders was joyful. Seems like Deion Sanders does talk about love. That, I believe, is hypocritical. That whole love thing is crap. I mean, let's just actually, now that I've really thought about it and I hear myself talk, Feinbaum is right about the hypocrite. Look, that program is a blank show in terms of how they treat players that aren't their guys. Make no bones about it. Everybody knows it. I know it. Now, I don't say these things without having inside knowledge, and I do. Have a friend, kid committed there. He's now going to be the starting quarterback at San Diego State. I know things. See this brain? It's filled with stuff. But anyway, good for Feinbaum doing what Feinbaum has to do. Another middle-aged white dude, writer. They're all the same. They're all going to do what they do. Now let's hear a player perspective. Dan Orlovsky. At some point, some of these people are allowed to stand up for themselves and not just constantly get dragged. Bingo. Not everybody should get a seat when it comes to having the opportunity to cover a program or their head coach. To say that him is being a bully and hypocritical, that's extreme. Bully, no. Hypocritical, yes. The absolute dumbest of the dumb. A disgusting woman named Heather Dinich of ESPN chimes in. This is petty. I used to drive Joe Paterno nuts every Tuesday asking why his quarterback wasn't getting any better. Never stopped me from asking, though. They were 3-9. Hard seasons equal hard questions. Colorado bans the reporter from questioning Sanders. Well, Heather Dinich is a disgusting human being. I mean, she just is. So she carries no weight, except for me to say, first, they won 4 games, you moron. Second, Joe Paterno, I knew Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno wasn't driven nuts by you asking about his quarterback not getting better. No. And that's a big difference, lady, between Joe Paterno being asked about a quarterback and a writer calling a guy ridiculous, defamatory names. But Heather Dinich is too stupid to understand it. She really is. She went to IU, and she's just too stupid to understand this. So let me explain it to you, Heather. I'll give it to you from Coach Paterno's perspective. I got to tell this young woman every week why our quarterback in her mind isn't getting any better. If I really told her why the quarterback wasn't getting any better, or I showed her what was actual, she wouldn't understand it anyway. No, that's exactly the way. I remember looking at reporters going, if I actually explained it to you, you wouldn't understand it. There's no way Heather Dinich, who, for whatever the reason, is on ESPN, there's no chance Heather Dinich understands. If somebody really, I've met Heather Dinich. I have. A couple times. Couldn't be less impressed with a human being, particularly given what I know about her. So I really don't want to hear from Heather Dinich on anything other than tell us who's going to be in the Bowl Championship Series and make sure you get a lot of makeup. It just gives me gas. The whole thing. Writers are so stupid, like Dinich. She can't understand the difference between asking a coach about a quarterback and calling a coach deposition Deion. He's a circus, having all these personal names about it. That's how stupid people coming out of Indiana University, where Heather Dinich came out of, that's how stupid people coming out of IU School of Journalism are. They can't differentiate the difference. I'm embarrassed for everybody except me and Dick Enberg. That's it. That's it. That's it. I do dig this. Magic Johnson, the simpleton, who's not really the simpleton, but when you listen to him or watch him on Twitter, he comes off as a real simpleton. He's kind of the Kamala Harris of Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, he explains things that are already explained. It's just odd, but it's fun. And I'm a big Magic Johnson fan. In fact, I will argue to this day it ain't even close, Magic and Bird. I mean, don't even try it. I fell in love with Magic Johnson in a Sports Illustrated article about a 6'8" guard handling the rock, yo. And then I started watching. Now, look, games weren't on. Every game wasn't on. You're kind of lucky from Jennison Fieldhouse, whatever the hell the Fieldhouse was called. You could get a little bit of Magic on a Saturday afternoon. But when I did, it was glorious. And then, of course, his freshman year when they made a run in the NCAA tournament, eventually getting beat, I believe, in the Elite Eight, and then sophomore year winning national championship, I remember thinking, yeah, this ain't close. Bird, Magic, are you nuts? And then the next year, he drops 40, 18, and whatever, playing center in Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Don't at me, people. I've always been a Magic guy, and I'm loving what he's doing here. Lakers legend, and he is a legend, is responding to Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards said in Michael Jordan's era, he was the only guy with skill. Oh, man. Anthony Edwards is really dumb. Like, I get it. You went out of high school. They paid you a lot of money, go to University of Georgia. You didn't do any work in high school. You were there 1 year at Georgia, 6 months. You didn't win nothing. I've already talked about this. So your education level ain't great. Certainly your level of basketball history sucks because there isn't one guy in the NBA right now that can do what Isaiah or Magic could do. Not one. I don't give a damn what you think. Not one. Go back and look at it. Not a soul can do what they can do. So this idiot says that Michael Jordan is the only guy with skill. Anthony Edwards has had like one good game, maybe a good playoff series. Anthony Edwards shit the bed in the Olympics at a point where LeBron James and Steph Curry, two old heads, had to bail him out. Michael Jordan never shit the bed in an Olympic game, but I digress. Edwards said they say it was tougher back then than it is now. But I don't think anybody had skill back then, really. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill, you know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe, they were like, oh, my God. But now everyone has skill. Nobody was like, oh, my God. There wasn't a soul that said, oh, my God. I mean, you got to remember when Kobe Bryant was in the league, Jordan was in the league. And nobody knew Kobe Bryant because he didn't go to college. It wasn't like, oh, my God. Kobe Bryant was good, very tough. But he wasn't. Oh, my God. Again, it's just a young guy being a young guy and being stupid. But again, hey, he had 6 months at the University of Georgia. I never respond to a guy that's never won a championship, says Magic Johnson, 5-time champ. Edwards didn't win a college champion. I don't even know if he won a high school championship. You ain't wrong there, Jick. You ain't wrong. I wonder if Magic, though, does respond to Charles Barkley. I wonder. I think they're friends. They played on teams together. And, you know, you could actually make the argument that Barkley, a couple Olympic gold medals, Anthony Edwards got a gold medal. Maybe they did win a championship. But I digress. I know exactly what Magic is saying. See, the level of Anthony Edwards' stupid by saying that is actually, and I never really say this, so ridiculous, so dumb, that you really don't even need to comment on it. Magic Johnson's comment was perfect. Anything else, you're just giving a really dumb guy some credibility. Former LPGA Tour player Amy Olsen revealed that she possesses common sense. Not many do now, and a basic understanding of biology. As she sounded off against transgender golfer Hailey Davidson, who's a mediocre dude. Now, dig this. Hailey Davidson is really like Mark Schwartz. I don't know. He's some dude that's playing dress up, and he's playing on the LPGA Tour. And he is now one step away from qualifying from the LPGA Tour. And Amy Olsen ain't having it. Unfair. These women have worked too hard and too long to have to stand by and watch a man compete for and take their spot. The only fair path forward is a policy based on sex, not gender. This gives me a headache. If you're born with the great American penis, you play against the men. If you're born with the great American vajayjay, you play against the women. If you transition, you play against the men. Woman to man, play against the men. Men to woman, play against the men. This stuff is not hard. It isn't. This Hailey Davidson is the same person who, well, he couldn't make it as a male golfer. Now, let me stop here. I don't pretend to say that men transitioning to women and women transitioning to men are doing it for sports. I really don't. I believe that 99.999999, whatever 9% you want to go to, I never say 100%, but this is about as close as it gets. I don't think any of them transition to say, you know what, I want to make the LPGA Tour, so I'm going to cut my PP off, grow some tits, and see what happens. Yeah, I don't think that's what happens. I think this is a much deeper, much more emotional decision, and I respect those that make that decision. But what I don't respect is the lack of respect for women's athletics. You want to put, as transgender apparently becomes more and more popular in our country, a third category, have at it. And again, 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 I have said, I don't want to hear about all men transitioning to women and all women transitioning to men having to play against women. There's nothing written here. There's no, as I've said before, Moses coming down from the mount and decreeing that everybody transitioning must participate against women. They do it because they know they can win. And if you don't think biology matters, don't at me. Serena Williams is the most dominant, greatest tennis player in the history of women's sports, and even she lost to the 250th ranked male player. I don't know what she'd have done against a 350. Who knows? And there's nothing wrong with that. But we're so jacked up in this country. We're so stupid here. And we got to be the only country doing it. We got to be. There's no one else. Anyway, the only path forward is a policy based on sex, not gender. I just get a headache by all of it. You got the great American penis, you're always participating against the men, whether you cut it off or not. You got the great American vajayjay, you're competing against the women. That's it. I'm sorry. Now, as a friend of mine, a woman said, who determines if it's the great American penis or not? I don't have an answer for that, other than if you got one and you're American, it's the great American penis. I'm out with that conversation. I'm in with this conversation because if this can happen, then good stuff can happen for me, including People Magazine's America's or World's Most Sexiest Man. Move over, Ryan Gosling. The modern female fantasy is embodied by the man who might soon become our first gentleman, author Catherine Rampell began. Emhoff, the first man. Emhoff, what's his name? Dave, Mark, Sally, I don't know. Appears to be the genuine mensch with an impressive career. Here's the career. He got his nanny knocked up. That's right. First marriage, married, kids. Started stooping the nanny. The nanny, who is also at fault at this, couldn't keep her legs not spread. The guy couldn't wear a condom. The nanny couldn't use birth control. Next thing you know, she's preggers. Next thing you know, this guy somehow, some way, according to some weird-ass woman in the Washington Post, is the great American sex symbol. Stand by your woman. I'm going to write the song. Stand by your woman. Hey, look, I got no problem with Doug Emhoff, other than the fact that he's a freaking pig, other than the fact that he doesn't respect marriage, other than the respect that I saw this the other day. I don't know what Kamala Harris was doing with Willie Brown, but it seemed to be something for payment. I don't know what that makes her, but I'm not saying either way. And that's what he married. I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe he is a great American sex symbol. And good for you. I'm sure he is to some beast from the Washington Post, but I got to tell you. I asked my wife, sex symbol? She goes, dude, he got his nanny knocked up when he was married. No, I really don't need to go any farther. But most importantly, for this sexy whatever, Emhoff is secure enough with his own masculinity to sometimes prioritize his wife's ambitions over his own. Oh, okay. Emhoff is smart. Emhoff knows you don't go into politics to serve. Say it with me. You go into politics to make that money, yo. You go into politics to live the life of the Barack Obamas, the Nancy Pelosi's, the whole Kennedy family. Are you kidding me? You go into politics to have 4 houses, 3 houses, 2 houses, however many houses you can afford, one on Rehoboth Beach. You go into politics because you don't have to work, and you get fat, and you insider trade, and it's all legal. What are you talking about? Hey, look, I told my wife, and maybe I'm the sexiest, I wish she would go back to coaching. I'd wear face paint, take my shirt off. Go Falcons. I mean, we always want to root for your wife. I guess that makes me sexy, but no, bullshit. If my wife went into politics, I'd be the happiest dude alive. If she became a United States Senator, I'd be so damn happy because I know, let's go, baby. We're going to get a house on the Gold Coast in Chicago and one in Manhattan. I'm going to be drinking sake with Nick straight out of the bottle, having a time of my life, damn it. Sexy man, my penis. That's all I got to say. President Trump paid tribute to the 13 service members killed during the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal while Biden vacationed at his multi-million-dollar house in Delaware. And, of course, Kamala, heels up, is nowhere to be seen. How about that? Today is a solemn day, terrible reminder of the failure of Harris and Biden to protect our standing in the world and the cost of that failure. Harris has proudly declared she was the last person in the room when she and Biden directed the botched withdrawal that cost the lives of Americans and our allies. I'm telling you, if you vote for Harris, you are a moron. The message to Americans is they should see the stark contrast of the Trump record to the Harris-Biden record on how we use our nation's military might in the world. That's from Trump advisor Brian Hughes. Actually, it wasn't Harris and Biden's fault that they weren't there. They weren't invited. Now think about that. These people know. They absolutely know what happened, and they didn't invite Harris. Flashback to the RNC. Christy Shamblin speaks on Trump's support for Gold Star families after her daughter-in-law, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole G. was among the 13 killed during the raid. Listen to this.
I'm Christy Shamblin. My daughter-in-law, Sergeant Nicole Leanne G. Was a United States Marine, and she was killed at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan, alongside 12 of her brothers and sister-in-arms. While Joe Biden has refused to recognize their sacrifice, Donald Trump spent 6 hours in Bedminster with us. He allowed us to grieve. He allowed us to remember our heroes. Donald Trump knew all of our children's names. He knew their stories, and he spoke to us in a way that made us feel understood, like he knew our kids. Donald Trump carried the weight for a few hours with me. Yeah. And for the first time since Nicole's death, I felt I wasn't alone in my grief.
Yeah, it's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. You know, during the disastrous June 27th debate that kicked off nearly a month-long effort to get Biden the hell out of there off the Democratic ticket, the President Biden claimed that he was the only president this century doesn't have any of this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like Trump did. Can you imagine? The remark enraged the Kabul Gold Star families, who told the Post it was more proof of Biden failing to acknowledge their losses. It took all self-restraint not to put my fist through the TV, Mark Schmitz, whose son, Marine Captain Jared Schmitz, was among the fallen 13, told the Post at the time. I was beyond ticked off. Disrespected. That's all we've ever gotten out of this president. You know, while Kamala Harris was on the arm of a 60-year-old married man, which, by the way, 60-year-old married men are very hot. Anyway, while she was on the arm of a married dude giving her gifts, I don't know what you call that. I got an idea what you call that. You know what Tulsi Gabbard was doing? She was in the Army. She was in the military. Let's hear from Tulsi Gabbard.
To the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief. Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its.
You know, Tulsi Gabbard coming out's a big deal. Tulsi Gabbard is an American hero. I mean, anybody that serves in the military gives up their own stuff to go ahead and do that. In my mind, is an American hero. And, you know, we're going to see. It'll be interesting to see who else climbs aboard with Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, and, of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.